Thank you all for being here tonight. Welcome. A little bit of housekeeping as we get started. Everybody's in the room for this one. Please try to stay on mute, but we will invite you all to unmute when it comes to question and answers. You are welcome to put comments or questions in the chat at any time, and we will be sure to ask them at the end. So welcome again. Thank you for being here tonight for this conversation with Jessica Silverman, Chris Perez, Sophia Kinell. We'll be talking about CCA and 8 Bridges and the San Francisco art world, and we're so happy to have you all here tonight. To introduce myself, I know a lot of you, but not all of you. I am Maria Hemphill. I am a board member at California College of the Arts and have been for the past 3 years. I actually chair an affinity group there called the Makers Roundtable. We have several members on the call tonight, so thank you all for joining. Makers Roundtable is an affinity group for CCA that raises funds for student scholarships. We are we create opportunities for events that are hands-on makers events on campus, usually, not right now, but in our previous iteration. And we really interact with students and faculty in various programs. And it's been a great way to get to know the school in a really hands-on way. So we are hoping to get back to that in the year ahead. In my professional life, I'm an art advisor at Zlot Buell and Associates here in San Francisco. And I help to curate and manage a broad range of private and corporate art collections. And I have been doing that for 14 years in August. And I am excited to introduce this collaborative conversation about CCA and 8 Bridges and chat a bit with some very wonderful speakers. I thought I would start by giving you a bit of background about CCA. It was founded in Oakland in 1907. We currently have two campuses, one in San Francisco and one in Oakland. But as many of you know, we have exciting upcoming plans to expand and unify the campus in San Francisco. We have 23 undergraduate and 11 graduate programs in fine arts, architecture, design, and writing. And CCA is definitely not your typical fine arts school, which is one thing that drew me to it the most when I first got involved. The school offers such a broad range of architecture, writing, and design programs, and I think really teaches a type of design thinking that's so important to all creatives. And I've also always been so impressed by the way in which programs are integrated. There's a lot of cross-pollination and collaboration between the various departments, which I think results in very well-rounded and thoughtful and innovative students. To share just a bit more about CCA before we launch into the meat of our program tonight. Enrollment at CCA is currently just under 1,650 students, 1,250 undergrad and 350 graduate students. And some, I think, important statistics to share. 30% of students are their first in their family to go to college. 34% are students of color. 78% of students are on some kind of tuition assistance or financial aid. At the college, there are 47 countries and 35 states currently represented, and 500 fantastic students just graduated on May 10th. There was a great virtual celebration with a wonderful commencement address by Sir Johnny Ive, and maybe we can pop that in the chat so you can take a look at the commencement address at your convenience if you're interested. These 500 new alums join over 11,000 alumni who live in the Bay Area and over 23,000 alumni total who are practicing a full spectrum of artistic media. I know we have some alumni present here tonight, so thank you so much. In addition to Jessica Silverman and Chris Perez, who we'll be speaking with soon. But before we speak with Jessica and Chris, I would love to introduce Sophia Kinell, who is the San Francisco regional lead for Phillips Auction House, a good friend of CCA and a founding board member at 8Bridges, which is a platform that I know many of you know, but we'll tell you just a bit more about tonight, especially for those who maybe don't know it well yet. And maybe we can, I'll navigate to the 8Bridges website and Sophia can tell us a little bit about it, but maybe we can put it in the chat as well so that people can return to it on their own. So welcome, Sophia. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And
thank you. Thanks, Maria.
Here is the 8Bridges platform. And I'm just hoping you can tell us a little bit about the platform, how it developed and took off in COVID.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you, CCA, and to everyone for tuning in. I know many of you have some degree of familiarity with 8Bridges at this point, or at least I hope you do. It launched in the fall of last year, and we're now in our 8th month. But I wanted to set the stage a bit by sharing what exactly it is and how it came to be. 8Bridges is named for the 8 bridges that connect the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's essentially an online collective. Creating community and maintaining the cultural vibrancy is really at the heart of it all, and that has been the guiding spirit as we take this forward. So what you're seeing here is our homepage. May is very special. Maria, if you'll scroll down a little bit. In honor of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, we have a seriously beautiful curation of works here by fellow founding committee member Kelly Huang, who's tuning in tonight, and Elisa, the curator down at the Cantor. And so it's an amazing group of works featured on the site. If you haven't cruised it yet, I really encourage you to. And additionally, in honor of that, our institutional spotlight this month is the Cantor Art Center, the Asian American initiative at the Cantor. And in addition to featuring a rotating roster of incredible gallery shows each month, 8Bridges also spotlights a nonprofit. And this is where my worlds, 8Bridges world and Phillips world intersect. Phillips is leading the donation charge with an initial give to each of these nonprofits each month. So this is a really nice feature on the site that allows us to spotlight some of the incredible work that so many organizations are doing here in the Bay. In addition, we have had some incredible programming. Last fall, we had an amazing panel series with a group of museum directors from top institutions here in the Bay Area. And we've also recently launched an amazing podcast series on Spotify. So under the news tab there, Maria, if you missed any of this, no worries whatsoever, because it's all recorded and you can go back and listen at your leisure. But this programming has been exceptional. And again, it's all sort of in the spirit of coming together. CCA, we are proud to be featuring CCA as our upcoming beneficiary in the month of June, just to spotlight. And with that, I'll turn it back to you all. But thank you so much, CCA and Maria, and to all of you.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for being such a good friend of CCA and for helping us brainstorm ideas and working with us on this collaboration. And thank you to you and Phillips for your generosity to CCA in the month ahead. We so appreciate it. And I would encourage all of you to peruse this great platform. It's really a great way to get to know a lot of gallery programs in San Francisco. And the podcasts are incredible. The programming's incredible. And if you miss any of the programming, as Sophia was saying, you can always go back to it. But there are so many galleries, programs that you can peruse on the main page. And this show is that they are featuring currently is totally gorgeous. So please do spend some time on the 8Bridges platform. And Sophia and I first spoke about this potential collaboration several months ago. We were deep in COVID and we realized that both 8Bridges and CCA have a very shared goal of supporting emerging artists and in the Bay Area. And in this unique moment, we talked about ideas of how to be innovative with our support of artists, of galleries, and what might be interesting in terms of a conversation. And we thought that speaking with some people that are connected to both CCA and Eight Bridges might be a fun way to further explore our shared interests. So, without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce two additional founding members of the Eight Bridges platform. Gallerist Jessica Silverman, who received a degree in curatorial practice from CCA in 2007, and Chris Perez, who received his degree from CCA in individualized studies in 1999. So we are so happy to have two fantastic CCA alums here tonight, and we'll chat with them now. So I think we'll start with Jessica. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and really great to be here with everyone. And I'm very curious about Chris's individual studies degree.
Me too.
So I look forward to hearing about that. I didn't realize it was so specialized. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Thank you. And for those, I know a lot of you know Jessica, but for those who don't know, Jessica is a CCA graduate, as you've now heard a few times, and an art dealer who opened her namesake gallery in San Francisco in 2008. And she has recently opened an incredibly beautiful new space in Chinatown. Her first show, which just closed over the weekend, I think, was with Bay Area artist Claire Rojas and was absolutely incredible. And she will open her next show. I think it's technically open on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And that show is a group exhibition that will feature several CCA alums. And maybe we can pop Jessica's website into the chat just for people to go back and visit. And so, Jessica, maybe we can start by telling everybody a bit about your new space for those who haven't had a chance to visit yet.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the introduction. So I know a lot of people on this call, and it's good to see familiar faces. So the gallery opened technically in 2008, although between 2006 and 2008, when I was at CCA, I actually had like a little basement pop-up space. So some could say on record, this is my fourth space rather than my third. And the first was in a basement, and we're really happy to not be in a basement anymore. And I would love to have everyone buy our new space. It's on Grand Avenue in Chinatown. So basically back in the end of 2019, I found this new location, signed the lease in January 2020, started demo in February 2020, and then the whole world shut down and the building department wasn't online, and we had tremendous amounts of delays, but we finally got there and we're so thrilled to be open. And as Maria mentioned, our first exhibition was with Claire Rojas, who's based in Bolinas in the Bay Area. A recent addition to our roster. We're so thrilled to be working with her. And the next show, we kind of referred to that show as our soft opening. And our next show is, and you can see images here, our next show is our grand opening called We Are Here. So we're now going from the outside of the space to the inside. The space is about double the size of our last space, with more exhibition space and office space and storage, etc. The Chinatown neighborhood of Grant Avenue is tremendously beautiful, and our front window actually looks onto St. Mary's Church, which is the oldest building in San Francisco, and it's just really a very different scene from what we had. So I welcome everyone to come in and experience it. And then once you are in the space, you kind of go past a floating wall, so you really feel enveloped in the work once you're inside. That was at least our hope. And Claire's show ended last Saturday. It came down on the following day on Sunday, and you know, downstairs there's a lot of movement happening.
Here we go, the new show on Friday.
Exactly. Well, actually, Claire's show was called Here We Go, and now the new show is We Are Here.
We Are Here. There you go.
Everyone in my office is like, it's like, here we are. Like everyone's just doing wordplay on it. Yeah. So over COVID, we were actually really busy adding some artists to our roster. Claire was one of them. Andrea Bowers, Sadie Barnett, and Catherine Wagner. So really great additions to the roster happened over COVID. And in the group show, that opens on Friday, you will see work by quite a few CCA people. Tammy Ray, the provost, who I see on this call.
Yeah, with us tonight.
And Luke Butler and Margot Walsh as well.
And Woody,
So
I have some
Woody
images.
Othello.
Yes. So I have some images from your upcoming show, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about the show more broadly, and then and we can talk a little bit about these artists that are all CCA grads. I think Luke this is Luke Butler's work, and he received his BFA in painting and drawing in 2008 from CCA.
Yeah, so a really great anecdote about Luke and my first time I saw him. It was really kind of perplexing because I would walk around when CCA had open studios, and he had a studio full of paintings, mostly of Star Trek characters. And I had actually at the time never seen Star Trek. But then there was a studio right next to it that had replicas of his paintings, which was another artist's work, was kind of replicating Luke's studio. So my first time meeting Luke was actually in the studio of the replicas where Luke was talking to that artist. And then I followed Luke back into his studio, and that was sort of the beginning of our now, over 10-year relationship. So this is a new painting called A Color Picture. I'm really tremendously excited about this work. Luke's work often represents film and cinema, and so A Color Picture is a reference to kind of old movie credits that he then kind of adds to the painting, and so it's like that credit stands perpetually in this moment. And over COVID, Luke had sort of recognized that it was, for a lot of us, kind of a dark moment. Even if things were okay, we weren't seeing each other, it was kind of quiet, gloomy. And he wanted to make a painting that was really an image of aspiration and positivity. And so he started walking around his neighborhood and photographed these purple geraniums. And he loved how they felt like they were kind of reaching to the sun out of this rich green shade, kind of similar to or analogous to the world opening up again. And he felt like it, and I totally agree that it would be a great painting for our grand opening group show. It's quite large, so nice to stand in front of it in person.
I can't wait. Thank you. And
yeah, and also, totally knew it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, just going on to our next, Woody Othello, who's one of my personal faves, is also a CCA grad. He received his MFA in 2017 from CCA.
Yeah. So probably the most recent graduate that we've added to the roster. Woody is totally on fire. I mean, he's an amazing guy. He actually just turned 30 this weekend, so kind of incredible. This is a new sculpture. Woody loves clocks, but he constantly is sort of shifting the way we read time. And the clocks are really this kind of reoccurring theme. And for our show, he made this piece called Face to Face, which again is this like reference to us being able to see each other again. And it's sort of like a love seat with these two different clock faces facing one another. And he said that he feels like the work reflects change and how we see time. And it's actually quite tall. Like, it looks kind of like you look down on it, but actually the seat height is sort of like you almost want to sit on it. Height. It's like perfect, except it's ceramic, so we don't sit on it.
They don't want to do
No, and the next, Woody will actually have a show with us coming up in September, end of September. So a lot more to see from him very soon.
Yeah, he's a real star. Will that show be mostly sculpture? I know you've had some great.
Yeah, mostly sculpture. He's actually doing a new bronze piece that's 8 feet tall, called Fountain, a kind of Duchamp reference. And then he'll also have some paintings as well.
Great, fantastic. And Tammy Ray, who is the provost at CCA and on our call tonight, will also be included in your show.
Yeah, we love Tammy Ray. And so Tammy Ray, interestingly, she was actually in a group show that an artist we don't work with anymore kind of organized in the basement gallery. So Tammy Ray and I go way back. and thrilled to have this incredible photograph, which has always been an image that I've wanted to exhibit on display. This is called Pirate Platform, and it's from a series called Outpost. And Tammy Ray actually traveled for this series to women's land communities, primarily like on the West Coast of the US. And it was during a time period in which many of these, lesbian kind of land communities were experiencing their 30-year anniversary. And part of making the work was actually staying on the land as she photographed them, which I found really interesting. And when we asked her about this particular image, she said that part of the lure for her was the curiosity about the utopian ideals of a chosen community and an intimate survival-based relationship with the land itself. And this particular image, I think, has these kind of childlike notions of escapism and play, and really brings up a lot with imagination with this kind of platform. We also don't really know how far off the ground we are, which I really love about this image. Like, is it 3 feet or is it like 30 feet?
It's really
It's a really lovely piece.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it in real life.
Yeah.
And Margot, I know Margot Walsh is also, I think she, let me look at my notes, she received her MFA in 2013.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I met Margot, and actually we became fast friends because she was from Michigan, where I'm also from. And we didn't actually start working together till maybe 4 or 5 years. She was out of school, but we followed, each other and stayed in touch. And she now lives and works in Detroit. And Margot really is a weaver, but one of the things I really love about her work is the way she kind of thinks through weaving, photography, and painting kind of simultaneously. And so while the end result is a weaving, its existence in the world is kind of through painting, because she sews her woven tapestries onto linen and then stretches them and puts them on the wall. The work that she made for this show and the work that she's sort of focused on right now is really like themes of self-care, comfort, touch, meditation, sort of in light of the pandemic, really. And her work isn't like, she would say it's not like deeply political, but she can't help but be sort of influenced, like many of us, by everything that's going around. And one thing that I will note on this particular piece is an addition of these panels of sterling silver leafed thread. And the reason for that is that this thread is handmade in Japan, and they're embedded with sterling silver, a metal that has natural antimicrobial and healing properties. And so I love that she's sort of woven this material into the work. And this piece is called Exit Plan, which you can kind of see in the little text there.
Yeah, I see it there. Yeah. And she pulls those images from like the internet, the news, is that right?
Totally, yeah. So she used like hashtags to search for things, and she'll put everything in a folder, organizes it in Photoshop, and then she heat transfers all of the images to the threads before hand weaving them on the loom. And so it also really includes this kind of, technology and the hand simultaneously.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I can't wait to see the show. And there are many other artists included in the show. All of them I know are so excited to be a part of this grand opening of your new space, but it's exciting to feature these 4 that are also connected to CCA. So
thank you so much. And I will, people can sign up for reservations for the time being, but we're hoping to just open up, go wild very soon. And we are planning an actual opening party. So keep an eye out for that. Stay tuned.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll come back and chat a little bit more about CCA and 8 Bridges in a minute. But in the meantime, we're going to welcome Chris Perez of Ratio 3. Thank you, Chris, for being here. And maybe we can put the Ratio 3 website in the chat as well. Chris Perez also attended CCA, as we mentioned, and he opened his Mission District Gallery on Mission and 24th in 2004. He works with several great artists with ties to CCA, including Jordan Cantor, who is the chair of the Graduate Fine Arts Program, Mitzi Peterson, Ben Peterson, and also Ruth Lasky, It's a nice transition from Margot, who's a weaver, and Ruth is also a weaver. So we will chat a bit about her work tonight. She just opened this absolutely gorgeous show. I don't know if it's even technically open yet, Chris. Is it? I had a chance to see it last week, and
Yeah,
it's
it
opening.
technically opens on Friday.
Friday. It's opening on Friday. It is really beautiful, and we will take a look at a few works tonight. But I would again encourage all of you to get over there and see it in person if you can. So, Chris, maybe you can walk us through this show and tell us a bit about. I have a few images here. You can tell us a bit about her unique practice and process, and the way the work has changed over the past couple of years, because I know there's sort of three distinct bodies of work in this show from I think 2021, 2020, and 2019. So I'll bring up an image here.
All right, thanks for having me. And thanks to everyone for joining us this evening, afternoon. Sorry, I'm just a little hoarse here. So Ruth Lasky, we went to school together, and we both graduated undergrad in 1999 together. So I've known Ruth for over, I think, 24 years now, or maybe even 25 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's really been quite a privilege to see the development of a true practice, over 2 decades of someone completely dedicated to a singular way of working and expanding upon that, from the early works where she began mixing her own pigments, and to make her own paints, and she started to very roughly weave together little canvases that were maybe this big, to suddenly making that leap into what she's been doing, this twill series for the past 15 years, of where I'll explain the practice to you. So what Ruth is doing is she's creating these works on a loom by hand. All the colored thread is dyed by hand. And she's very much interested in merging the idea of structure and subject. So think about it this way. So traditional painting is a canvas with paint painted on top, right? So the canvas becomes the support for the picture, for the paint.
Mm-hmm.
What Ruth is doing is she's merging them together. So there's no separation between medium and subject. It's all one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
It does? Okay.
And it's very successful, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite a profound way of working,
Yeah.
but she really considers these to, be paintings, even though they're made on a loom.
Right.
So this is a show that brings together the past 3 years works of work.
And it's a lot of work for her, I know.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. She works incredibly slowly, sometimes making 6 to 9 works a year, if even that.
Right.
And so we're very lucky to be having 22 weavings in the gallery.
Amazing.
Yeah, and in the past, whenever we've done a solo show with Ruth, she's always wanted to share the gallery with another artist. So the last show was with Susan Fracon,
Right.
and the show before that was Lee Lozano.
Right.
So this is really the first time where she's taken over the entire space, and I feel very lucky to be having them, hanging in the gallery. So there are 3 distinct bodies of work in the show. So the first one that you're showing is the newest one from 2021, the Aggregate series. And in this series, she is using 5 colors, which is the first time she's ever used 5 colors within one weaving. I know that might seem kind of restrained to us, if you think about a painter who uses lots of different colors and mixes colors, but Ruth is so precise about how she wants to make these work. So 5 colors, 5 shapes coming together to form one shape. And the works, it's kind of allude to geography, maps. I mean, these are all very loose associations that you can see within the work.
And I know, as you're saying, these are sort of small changes, but for her, this is she's breaking some of the systems that have really been constants in her work. So it's interesting that after, to see after this past year, she's sort of breaking out of some of the systems that have been
Definitely. And
ongoing.
when you see the exhibition, you sort of see the works in a reverse chronological order.
Right,
So
which is how we're going to show them here. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go through the.
Okay, we'll go to the next one. And also the first time in maybe 15 years or so that she's changed the titles of the works, right? I know they've always been Twill series.
That's a very good, you're very perceptive there, Maria. Yes, it's always been named Twill series, and in the parentheses, the colors of the dyes in the
Right.
piece. And so
Well,
because these pieces, the aggregate works have 5 colors, it would just kind of been almost comical to list all the colors. So she just went with aggregates and then numbered them. So this is
the Twill series, right, from 2020?
2020, yes. So this series, she's created these shapes that suggest vessels, and has woven a gradation of the color from darker to lighter to suggest light and volume. And then the shapes themselves hold another shape within them.
And we're sharing some images with you here, but please go see them in person. The color is really, really hard to read from an image, and it's just so striking in person. So
I mean, this is the kind of show you certainly have to experience in person. And I think after over a year of all of us sitting online, looking at work on our computer, it's so refreshing to walk into a space and spend time with art, one-on-one, and have that experience. And I think, Jessica, I'm sure you agree, this is why we have galleries. We don't have galleries, things online and that kind of thing. We have galleries because we want people to come into the spaces and experience the shows. These aren't easy shows to do. These take, this is 3 years in the works. So we really encourage people to visit your local galleries, and, where else can you go and see art for free?
Yeah, we're so lucky to have you both in San Francisco. And then the last body of work in the show is the earliest body of work from 2019.
Yeah, this is 2019. So this is a pre-pandemic, I guess. Is that how we're dating things now?
Yes, so pre-pandemic, post-pandemic.
Or PC, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in this series, it's the most sort of restrained one that you could say, where she's woven 2 identical shapes and then connected them with this sort of geometric line. And that line creates not only another shape within the work, but also dictates or suggests the relationship between those 2 objects within it. And in conjunction with the show, we've published Ruth's first monograph.
I was going to say I got a little sneak peek of it, but it arrived right after I left the gallery last week, and it looks absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. It's been over a year in the making. It was one of our COVID projects.
Yeah.
And like Jessica, what delays are like. We kind of kept having to push back the date of the show because we were waiting for the book. We thought, well, we have to open the show with at least a few copies in hand. So we, postponed it by a few weeks, and luckily we're able to have a few in the gallery. And I think our press release went out today, and you can pre-order the book. It should arrive within the gallery in a few weeks, but it is her first monograph, and it brings together 15 years worth of work. And it has many of the works in the exhibition. And it was co-published with Wright Editions, with Robin Wright.
Fantastic.
Who has been a supporter of Ruth's work since the beginning. So it was really an honor to work with Robin on this book.
Great. Well, I will be pre-ordering my Ruth Lasky book right after this chat.
Pre-order discount.
Okay, I love it. Thank you, Chris. And maybe we can bring Jessica and Chris both back to the conversation and just talk for a few minutes about your time at CCA. I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience there, about what you studied. I know Chris is individualized studies major. We'd love to hear a bit more about that. So just anything you can share with us.
Well, I kind of wanted to comment just on something Chris said, which I think, ties back a little bit to 8 Bridges as well, which is, you know, this is like a high touch business. You know, we love to have people look at what we do, have what the artists do, and it's really integral to the whole ecosystem to come to galleries and see things. And at the same time, you know, the commitment that, you know, the founding members have had to 8 Bridges, and as the world changes, you know, I think is a really important thing just to note, like that digital space during a time, especially for me, like literally not having a gallery was really integral, to have that community. And so, you know, 8 Bridges is going to persist, just in a very different way, because we're also going out and seeing things in person now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about your time at CCA, both of you, what you studied, and you know, what you've carried with you from your time at CCA as a gallery owner.
Well, the image you're showing is of a school that I didn't go to. When I was graduating in '99, they had just opened half of the San Francisco campus,
Yeah,
and the other half was raw.
right.
Um, yeah, I graduated from California College of the Arts and Crafts
Yes.
in 1999. And before that, I had a lot of experience in the art world before finishing art school. I had started school in San Diego, but had worked in many museums since I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So I really came to it with uh, a lot of sort of knowledge about art and contemporary art.
Right.
But was in the individualized program. I don't even know what it was. I think it was really kind of this program for people who weren't really good at making one thing, but kind of just wanted to try out different things. I guess we were kind of restless and wanted to, you know, dip our fingers into all the programs because, you know, you're at art school and it's exciting and you want
Yeah.
to hang out in the painting department, or you want to hang out in graphic design and see what they're doing, or you want to
Right.
be over here, you want to be over there. I don't even know how many there were of us, but not that many. Um,
But I think that's such a special thing about CCA. From the time I've spent there, you know, going into the school, you kind of wander from department into department. It's all very open and everybody's sharing ideas and everybody's sort of keeping an eye on what everybody else is doing and and impacting each other's, you know, creativity. And I think that's one of the most special things about CCA. And also obviously not everybody's studying fine arts. So they have the influence of the architecture department, the product design, the fashion design. So I think that the individual studies concept is so fitting for CCA to me.
yeah, I think I learned a few things at art school. I think I learned how to look at and talk about art.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you also learn how to quickly figure out what you like and what you don't like when you're looking at a piece of art, and explain, you know, why you don't like it or why you do like it. But I also think something that's really important that I took away from CCA was really the network of friends, you know, that I have remained friends with for, I guess, 22 years. I graduated ago. And
Yeah, no,
what
and you have to go see her new space.
If you wouldn't mind, there you go.
yeah. You know, whether that be, you know, like working with Ruth and knowing her for so long, or other people that I went to school with. And I think that's really important, is the network, because that's something that you really can't get anywhere else, and you can't get it online. You know, it has to be fostered and developed in person.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Yeah, I totally, I love that, all of that. CCA was very interesting for me, because I was in the curatorial department. I went to grad school right after undergrad,
Mm-hmm.
from Los Angeles to San Francisco. I didn't like know a lot of people here. And the curatorial program was quite young at the time. Like, I think I was the 3rd year there. So it was like a fresh program that was still kind of figuring itself out. The thing that I loved best and I made great use of were all of the visiting curators, and they did an amazing job. Kate Fowle at the time, who ran the program, um, you know, she was and still is very well connected and like brought all of her curator friends from Europe to San Francisco. And so I hung out with all of them, and I would always offer to pick them up from the airport and take them around. And while that doesn't sound like, school, it was integral to my education and understanding the way the art world worked.
Yeah.
And like learning about artists through them. And I actually ended up getting a curatorial residency with Chus Martinez at the Frankfurter Kunstverein after the first year at CCA because of that. So I just loved the kind of doors that it opened, that I was able to sort of walk through just because of these like gentle introductions. And at the time, Wattis was also on the campus there. And so just visiting that space, over and over and over again was really important to my understanding, like how an exhibition space ran and programmed.
That's a great point. Yeah, the Wattis is such an incredible resource for,
Totally.
for the whole community and of course for the students. So it's a great point. And any thoughts about showing artists who have come through CCA? Anything that stands out to you? I know both of you have longstanding relationships with many artists who have come from CCA programs.
There's great artists coming out of the programs. I mean, I sat in on like a Zoom studio visits are like, so, but I was really impressed. CCA for the first year students, who many of them never even made it to San Francisco because of the pandemic.
Right.
I was really impressed in their first year, they might have been undergrad students. I can't even remember, but they were really good. I was really impressed.
Right.
So, the artists that we show already that graduated from CCA are really important to our program. And, I'm still always looking and investigating.
Yeah, same here. I really look forward to seeing the MFA and the BFA shows in person.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Well, it's amazing and inspiring, I think, to see two CCA graduates who are such successful and important leaders in our Bay Area community. And I always tell people that supporting CCA, when I have my CCA hat on, I always tell people that supporting CCA is one of the best ways to support the future of art and culture in the Bay Area. And I think you two are both incredible examples of that message.
That's kind.
And maybe just sort of circle back to 8 Bridges for a few minutes. A few more questions there. I know obviously both of you are founding members of 8 Bridges, and how has it helped you and your artists, especially during the pandemic? I mean, obviously people haven't been able to get into the gallery. So has this been one of the main ways that you've been able to connect with people when you haven't been able to be in person?
Chris, why don't you go?
We've actually, we've had our space open since July.
Yeah.
So we've been able to welcome visitors, and clients and other people to the space.
Right.
What I think it's really done for us, and I mean, Jessica might agree, is really solidified, the relationships between all the galleries and other arts people within San Francisco.
Such a good point.
It brought us all closer together. And I think that, what has started can certainly become something even greater, and expand. Maybe it's not always online. Maybe in the future, 8 Bridges is in person.
Right.
Into that.
Well, that leads to my other question on the 8 Bridges front was, how do you see it serving artists and galleries, going forward and pivoting? I know you have these amazing podcasts. I know, Jessica, you were mentioning sort of a landing page for resources for people from other communities. And I think it's such an interesting point, Chris, that this has really fostered an even greater sense of community between the participating spaces.
Yeah, so the resource page that we've been building out is very close to being finished, Maria, and it's actually a page where artists can go to find grants that will help them or, you know, internships or residencies. And then on the other side, there'll be a component for dealers with framers that we all recommend, art installers that we like, shippers that we like, local art stores we can buy supplies and things like that. So really kind of like pulling from what we all love and the people that we work with and, you know, want to keep throwing support towards. So that's the resource page. And, you know, as the world opens up, like we do have to think about like what the digital space for 8 Bridges means and looks like. We have, after Kelly Huang's current exhibition, which is online now and is not to be missed, we have June and July program for Bay Area dealers.
Right.
And then after that, we're kind of thinking about some new strategies. So more to come, definitely on that.
Well, I can't wait to hear what is next. And on that note, we're happy to welcome questions for anybody that may have questions. I don't know if we have any in the chat or.
Yeah, there's a few there, Maria.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I see them.
Great one from Jessica Farron.
I
don't have them handy.
Oh, really? I can. Do you want me to read them?
Yeah, I lost my.
So I'm gonna go. So Jessica Farron's is the most recent one, and I'm just gonna read it out loud for me and Chris. Can you both talk briefly about why you chose CCA and what set it apart for you? And did you always know that you wanted to own your own gallery, or did that come during your time at school?
Such a good question. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah. Well. Why I ended up there is sort of quick because I had applied to the Royal College in London. I knew I wanted to do curatorial practice. I was at art school in LA and I really like hated being an artist. It just wasn't for me. I like talking about everyone else's work. And so I had great teachers there who encouraged me to think about curatorial work. And at the time I thought curating was just museums. But I, you know, came quickly to realize being at CCA that it was much more. And so because I was living in LA and I wanted to keep my relationships with the West Coast, I chose CCA rather than going to Bard or Royal College. And then with regard to being a dealer, I think I always kind of wanted to be in the art world, and when I wanted to be an artist, I didn't want to be a dealer because the two don't usually go hand in hand. And I do think actually it was during my time at CCA and through my travels that came out of my time at CCA that it was clear to me that being a dealer was my path.
That's great.
Why did I choose CCA? I had a friend. We both moved up to the Bay Area at the same time, and she went to Mills for art. And I remember her saying that she had wished she'd gone to CCA. And I thought, well, maybe then I should go there.
There you go.
I didn't even think about SFAI. It just seemed like, oh, well, this seems like a cool place to be. And so that's why I went there by default. And in terms of my career path, you know, I was like Jessica, an artist, but I realized very early on that I was a lot more excited about other people's art than my own art. And, you know, at CCA, I mean, CCA was really, it was so pivotal for my life and my career. At that time, the school had just brought over Larry Rinder from the Berkeley Art Museum to create what became the Wattis. At that time, it was called the Institute, and I had, you know, several years of museum experience behind me. And I asked Larry Rinder if I could work for him, and so I was his work study student.
Amazing.
And yeah, it was incredible. It was such a fun time with lots of art. Larry was really opening up CCA to the world, and there were so many artists coming through, and I met so many people, and got very involved in working with Larry, and we co-curated a show together. He let me curate a show at the Institute of the Wattis, and then he got the job as curator of contemporary art at the Whitney Museum.
Yeah.
And when I graduated, he said, "Do you want to come to New York?" And I said yes. And that time having spent at the Whitney was so important to everything. Basically, the foundation of how I understand and art.
Yeah.
Here I was, a 25-year-old, suddenly in the middle of the art world in New York, and it all would not have happened had I not been at the school, and Larry had not been there.
That's amazing. And I think it's so interesting to hear both of you talk about, being artists, but really also loving to look at other people's work and appreciating other people's work. And it just is such a good reminder that like being in art school doesn't just mean you're like in a box of one thing. There are all these sort of paths.
I remember I used to work in the computer lab, like on the weekend evenings, just working. I don't know what I did, but I was always so jealous of watching the graphic designers design fonts.
Totally.
It just seemed like the coolest thing instead
Yeah.
of making like a sculpture or something. I thought fonts seem so much better.
I know. I love seeing all the fine art when I'm there because obviously that's my world as well. But I'm equally interested in all the things I don't know as well. So it's
yeah, I mean, it's so great to walk around the halls and you see the graphic design projects on the walls and the architectural models, and nothing makes sense, but it all looks amazing.
Yeah.
But from transitioning to working in museums to working starting a gallery, it just seemed like a natural transition. After I left the Whitney, I came back to San Francisco and I decided I wanted to do something. I didn't know what else to do, so I started a gallery in a very small room in my old apartment. But I would say the gallery wouldn't be where it is today without relying on that network that I had started at CCA.
That's great. We maybe have time for one more. I completely lost track.
Let's see. Okay, the other two questions, Maria, are do you see a way in which 8 Bridges could serve as a tool for research for CCA students? So that's one question.
Okay.
And it's kind of tied to the second one. So that was Michelle Harris, and then the second one is from Kelly Huang. What can we do as a community to keep artists here in the Bay Area?
I love both those questions so much. And maybe they kind of tie together. And what can we do? I mean, for me, that's always a huge question. Like, what can we do? What can we do to support our community here? What can we do to keep artists here and to keep, supporting this community? So great questions, Kelly and Michelle.
Yeah, I would say with regard to CCA students, I mean, we would be super happy at some point to have James Goebel or like Glenn Helfand who teaches there, or Tina Takamoto who I saw is on there, or Tammy Ray, like curate something of the students or do something digital online during a grad show even. I think there's a lot of different ways that we could use our space to cross promote what's happening at CCA.
Yeah.
And in regards to keeping them in the Bay Area, I mean, I've also been doing a lot of local studio visits, which I think is really important, and that leads to new discoveries, and in turn, hopefully, encourages people to stay here.
That's great.
I think there could also be grants, for more studio spaces. I mean, there's a lot that we could do to ensure that students stay in the Bay Area.
Yeah, after graduation.
I would say staying in the Bay Area is really one of the biggest challenges that graduates face. I think we've all faced it, right? Trying to stay in the Bay Area. But I think artists have a way of making things work one way or another. They'll find a way to make it happen.
Well, thank you both so much. This is such a treat. 2 of my favorite people, and it's really been so much fun to chat with you both about all things CCA and 8 Bridges. And thank you, everybody, for being on the call tonight. I'll give you a quick recap of some opportunities to engage with 8 Bridges, Jessica, Chris, in the coming, days, months. Definitely visit and peruse the 8 Bridges website, which we've dropped in the chat. Content is ever changing there. Kelly's show is amazing. Check it out. It sounds like there's some great upcoming content over the summer. Definitely check out the podcasts. Mary's Lot, who I work with, is featured in one of them, and it's a great one. Woody D. Othello, who we talked about tonight, who will be in Jessica's upcoming show and is a CCA grad, had a great podcast, so check those out. Art drops. There are great art drops here and there. You'll see the flashing art drop at the top of the 8 Bridges website, and that is an opportunity to buy artwork, often by younger or emerging artists. It's a win-win. You get something fantastic and you support these young artists that we've been talking about. And thank you again to Phillips for honoring CCA as the beneficiary for the month of June. Thank you, 8 Bridges and Phillips, for that. We are so grateful. And visit the galleries in person. We've been talking about how wonderful these shows are. And it's great to see images on a Zoom, but it's 10 million times better to be there in person. So make appointments, go in. I've seen Chris's show. I will be knocking down Jessica's door probably tomorrow. And a recap of opportunities to further engage with CCA. As I mentioned at the start of the call, I have this affinity group called the Makers Roundtable, and we would welcome any interest there. We'll put my email in the chat. You can reach out to me if you're interested in Makers Roundtable, if you're interested in CCA more broadly. If I don't have the answers, I'll direct you to the right person. And we will, talking about supporting artists in the Bay Area, the whole goal of our Makers Roundtable organization is to fundraise for scholarship for students at CCA. And as I mentioned at the outset, 78% of students are on some kind of tuition assistance or financial aid. So that is a big part of what we do. And we'll put a link to Makers Roundtable scholarship giving in the chat as well. And just a big thank you to all of you for being here and spending an hour. I think we're right at an hour on Tuesday night. And it's been such a thrill. Thank you again, Sophia, and to Jessica and Chris. It's such a treat to chat with you all. So
thank you so much.
And
great to see Chris and Sophia and Carolyn and Maria. Thank you all for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thanks
all
for
right.
joining.
Thank you. Take care. Enjoy your Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.